Greetings, brothers and sisters. Another Hollywood celebrity dropping like flies.
They're dropping like flies.
Listen, people are dropping like flies out there.
I am
Boop.
pissed off.
We're dropping like flies around here.
We're dropping like flies here. Jeez, sir, 2 more just went down. Dropping like flies.
Too many people around here been dropping like flies already, and where's that getting us, huh? Nowhere. Fast.
Biden's being Biden's being extremist.
Crush that fly.
I was going to do a health update, something that I found was very beneficial for me. But I'm going to wait till I get to the Canadian fires in a bit. I'll just stop and do a little voiceover there. Did I say it was another Hollywood celebrity dropping like flies? If I didn't, I need to say it here. Breaking Bad star Mike Batea dead at 52 after suffering heart attack in his sleep. A lot of people died in their sleep. It's a COVID thing, and I'm going to actually talk about this when I get to my health update thing. So this was really funny.
That will kill us.
This is wonderful. So they're flying over the Grand Canyon. The tourist decides to grab the lever.
No. That will kill us.
You shouldn't be Anyways. All right, so this is kind of hilarious. Maybe fake and staged, like everything like this could be. So what happened here is Conor McGregor is in partnership with the Miami Heat basketball team. And so they did a stunt with the boom, and he did a stunt with the mascot. See it again here. And he cold cocks the mascot. Looks like he actually hit him here. And Conor McGregor got up, and he's kind of goofy now. He's taking too many shots to the head, whatever. And he gave a speech, and the audience started booing him. They are selling some sort of pain relief spray or something. And the Miami Heat fans boo him. So maybe he's a little bit mad. Maybe this is staged. I don't know. It definitely was big for publicity because I saw multiple stories about it. But he punches the guy and punches him again and apparently knocked him out. And the guy needed to receive medical attention. But then he comes over and he starts spraying him with the pain spray as they drag him off. So it kind of looks like he actually hit him. And he actually hit him there as well. It just matters what he has underneath there that could absorb a punch or not. But he went down pretty hard. And there he is, Conor McGregor, like a dork, spraying the guy. And the crowd was like, what's up, right? And so this is either a publicity stunt or brain damage. And that he just really didn't know what to do. I mean, it looks like he actually connected there. It depends on how much, if the guy was wearing a helmet or whatever. He certainly had whatever's going on with the mask. And it's being shared on the internet, so there's that. But he could have had areas where he could punch him like that and get away with it. So, like everyone's seeing this today. I'm kind of leaning on publicity stunt, but, brain damage with Conor McGregor is also a factor. Some Taylor Swift fans are reporting post-concert amnesia. A psychologist explains why. The Eras Tour have reported inability to remember much of what they witnessed. Anybody else not remember anything from the concert? Pretty much the next day I felt like I totally forgot everything, and more so weeks later, like I wasn't actually present at the concert. So that's interesting. This guy, is fascinating that it takes a Taylor Swift concert and multiple concerts for this to become topical, because this is something that happened It's a normal process, actually. It's a normal phenomenon that one's excited and one has a lot of sensations coming in and sort of hyper-focused on one thing, and they might not be able to process in memory. It's not really full amnesia. At no point anybody describe a fugue state where they wake up and, the concert and they're at home and they don't know how they got there. They don't remember being anywhere. So it's just completely normal that they would go to a concert and not remember it. Right? So this is another one, another article here about it. Maybe some kind of mind control. I don't know, just throwing it out there. Florida man contracts flesh-eating bacteria infection from bite of a relative. Well, why is his relative biting him? And what's going on with his relative's mouth that he has flesh-eating bacteria in it? Sounds like some sort of a zombie thing. New York City will charge drivers going downtown. Other cities may be next. It says here, President Joe Biden administration is set to allow New York City to move forward with a landmark program will toll vehicles entering Lower Manhattan after a public review period ends Monday. And so I've been to New York City, multiple times. I want to, get to my story in a second here. Let's do this. Proposals range from charging vehicles $9 to $23 during peak hours and set to go into effect next spring. The plan has been delayed for years, but it cleared a milestone last month with the federal highway, whatever it is. This is a part of the whole, well, let me get into my stories and what I think about this here. So growing up in Connecticut, Hartford was a big city, and it's a small city. I don't know what the population is there, but it's a small city compared to the, behemoths of New York and Boston. And we were about 2 hours from Boston. As a kid, that's like forever, right? But as an adult, I can drive, 4 hours or whatever. Living in the West, we have to drive over vast land, vast amount of land just to get to from city to population areas. My perspective has changed, but in Connecticut, we were about 2 hours from multiple beaches, 2 hours from New York, 2 hours from Boston. And we used to drive over the Tappan Zee Bridge from New York, through New York to my dad's parents, my grandparents, and my aunts and uncles, relatives in New Jersey. And I had a fascination with the Natural Museum of History. I had encyclopedias, which I read about animals and things like this. I was, always, I wanted to be like a naturalist. Marlon Perkins was this TV show, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, similar to what David Attenborough and these other people, the crocodile hunter kind of shows. And I had a attachment to New York City. We went to the Bronx Zoo when I was a kid, and I always wanted to go back. And my parents planned some sort of a weekend trip there to go to the Bronx Zoo and the museum, which was, a positive thing. They were doing it because I, pestered them or whatever. And we went over there. We drove in a station wagon with luggage on the back, and we parked on a New York street. We came back, and our window was smashed, and all our luggage was gone. Because that's what happens. The people in New York are like, well, how stupid are you to leave your car in the street like this with luggage in it? Like it's your fault because, that's what you should expect when you go to New York, right? And I had multiple negative experiences with New York. There was a time where, I didn't have any real relatives, and when I was going to school in Connecticut, my parents had moved to Florida. I didn't have much contact with my family. And so I basically spent holidays either with my friends who were still around when I was in college or, alone or whatever. I didn't even think about it, right? I mean, holidays weren't such a big deal. And so there was a Thanksgiving, and one of my friends was, he just didn't get along with his family. He was, a semi-coke dealer. It's like a small time, whatever. And he said, well, let's go to New York. And so we drove to New York. And he brought coke and whatever, and This is back when I used drugs and things. And we got really wired and we started drinking early. And we got there and it was just pouring rain and there was nothing open. We ate, some sort of, whatever it was at a Chinese restaurant, our Thanksgiving Day meal. And it was torrential downpours, cold Thanksgiving rain. And we were going to hang out and try to go to some clubs or whatever in New York. But like there's a cocaine that leaves you really bummed the next day when you have it. It's like adrenaline and it's like all the adrenaline goes from your system and you're just, it's a really bad hangover. And we had been drinking beers early in the morning and it all just sort of like around 3 or 4, we were like tired and really bummed. And the rain was bad and we were like soaked. And so I was driving and I said, all right, let's go back. I was sober enough to drive. And we started to drive and there was something wrong with the New York City roads. I mean, they have these giant potholes and whatever it might be. And there was something wrong with the roads. And it was pulling my car. Maybe my tires weren't like the best. I was a college kid. But there were these grooves in the road and it was just pulling me left and right. Like the car was not stable. It's pouring rain. It wasn't hydroplaning. It was the grooves in the road. And like I'm, mostly sober, but I'm a little bit still wired and just like, and drove through it. It was like maybe 10 minutes, but it seemed like forever. And I was like, oh my God, like why would I ever come back to New York, right? But years later, I dated this nurse who was into plays. And we went to see Cats and Miss Saigon. Cats is one of the worst experiences. I don't like plays in general. There's also a play called Miss Saigon, which is about Vietnam, which is a little bit better. But I don't like musicals. I don't like singing. The plays, the theater, I don't like any of it, right? Like and this is when I learned that. But my girlfriend, we were walking through the streets of Manhattan, like we went to dinner or did something. And there was some guy playing, there's this crowd doing 3-card Monte. And she goes, oh, I want to go see that. I go, don't go see it. There's criminals and they're going to try to suck you in. Right. And I was, so she went over there and I wasn't really paying attention. And at some point, the guy pointed to her and said, oh, show me $40 and you can win 80 or whatever. 100, I don't know. And she pulled money out, which you never do in New York City, which we had talked about. And the guy flipped a card and said, you lose, and grabbed the money. And, there was like a couple guys with them and there was just no getting it back, right? And I was like, what are you doing? Like I told you, they're going to suck you in. It's a scam, right? It's these are criminals here on the street. It's not a, licensed gambling casino. Like, it was kind of a bummer and the play was a bummer. And my experiences in New York were mostly bad. And then my family and I, we went to India, I think it was 2013, and we stayed in New Jersey with a guy now who's a real kind of problem, but he was friendly, good person back then, a preceptor for the Sajmarg organization, and the guy had a beautiful house and he had a couple of patents, and people would stay at his house before flying out from New York because going to international travel, it's always better to leave from a big city. New York is one of the best because it's East Coast. And, I was driving into New York and it was like we were flying out like 10 at night or something. And it was, it was just dark out. And we came over this bridge and it was like entering into Mordor. I was looking at like what's happened, giant potholes and these like cauldrons of smoke, like some sort of, this is like, weirdly apocalyptic. Everything was, the infrastructure was broken down. I'm like, what's happened to New York? Like, there's always been problems there. It's always been a not that great city. There's a movie where the centerpiece of the movie is this giant pothole wrecks this guy's car, and he's, I forget what it's called. I don't know. It's like a comedy when I was a kid. But the roads have broken down for years. It's not something new, but it's so bad, back, I don't know, this was like 10 years ago, and I know it's worse now. And with COVID, just all the things to do with the collapse in New York, all the woke stuff, people with money are moving out. Even Andrew Nips Cuomo addressed this when he was, he was talking about all these people going to their Hampton homes, these rich people, and no longer living in New York and not wanting to be there in the city itself. And, all the stuff to do with the, the mandatory vax stuff, all the other stuff, right? And people are relocating in Florida and Texas, Texas from California, Florida from New York, and Tennessee, lots of Tennessee, people going to Tennessee, and the Carolinas, and I know this for a fact. I've, talked to people, I've been through these areas and things, and I know that this is happening. It's being covered somewhat by the media. And in New York, it's pretty much a very stressful, it's hard to drive there, it's hard to live there. It's, it's going to take years off your life just getting from point A to point B. And then there's the public transportation, which is kind of a nightmare as well, right? And the trains running in and out. People living in Connecticut and commuting into the city to work at these, expensive places. And a $9 to $23 toll, you want tourist business, and there's just going to be less people going there anyway because there's less people. New York is a pit. People are worried about crime and things like this, and they don't go to cities anymore. And then just the smoke thing that happened, we'll talk about that. There's a couple of things to do with that coming up in this whatever it is. But you're killing your tourist business. It's already cost. Back when I used to go there, it used to cost $20-some to park. It's probably $100 now. I don't even know how much it costs to park in Manhattan, and it's not that great there. There's whatever shows and things. But it's it's not great. It's it's jumped the shark years and years ago, and now they're doing this. It's going to cost you. In terms of the aggravation of driving to the city and getting to New York and all the traffic and things, and then the tolls and the parking, it's going to cost you $100-something just for the pleasure of driving in New York. What if you just want to go out to dinner at a restaurant, some restaurant, you live in New Jersey or something, you want to go to one of the fancy restaurants or whatever, and you got to park, you got to pay, $100 extra to go to these upscale restaurants that overcharge for food and all this, what a disaster. And, they want to drive people into the cities for this Agenda 23 thing or Agenda 31 thing. And, I don't know. But it's going to be like Escape from New York at some point. It's just going to be, maybe they'll have some financial district in Manhattan, people will helicopter in and out, because the rest of the city is just falling to pieces, and the government and everything else. But anyways, let's move on to the next thing here. Okay, so Stephen A. Smith, who I don't like, and I talked about the way he mishandled the Kyrie Irving thing, had this to say about Joe Biden.
Say it. We need a new president in 2024. We need a new president. Now, when we saw what we saw the other day, Biden handing out diplomas to graduates at the Air Force Academy in Colorado, and we saw him fall. You'll see it right here. Watch him. He tripped over a sandbag.
Remember, the liberal media, I've covered this on my other channel, we're blaming the sandbag and its placement there. It's because he can't lift his feet. He shuffles his feet. He no longer can get his feet off the ground. And he runs funny. He's old. He's just old. That's what happens to your body. And so Stephen A. Smith, again, he mishandled the whole, the Kyrie Irving, the the boop, that whole thing. And he's kind of annoying, of a carnival barker. But he's starting to do a little bit of truther stuff. Of course, this is good for his ratings because people are into it. But he hammered the mainstream media so much, Fox News covered it. And he also, I turned this on the other day, and I was eating lunch, and First Take was on. And they were talking about the PGA merging with the LVA, with the LV, whatever it's called. So there is two golf leagues. There was a new golf league that started, I think it was like last year or the year before, and it comes from Saudi Arabia. There's the PGA, and then there was the LV something, whatever. The Saudi Arabians who have all this money poured all this money into golf, and they bought off these high-profile players, and they were called traders, the players, and the PGA talked about Saudi Arabia and human rights abuse and how immoral they were over there and how bad it was. But they merged, like last week or something like this. And the Saudis now own, to some extent, professional golf. They are, in partnership, and they are, part owners of the PGA now. And a bunch of Republican congressmen and, politicians came out and hammered all of that, right? And the PGA for caving on their, complaints about human rights and all these things. But Stephen A. Smith, I just caught the end of this thing, was railing against the hypocrisy because he listed the corporations that are now connected to the Saudis, which people, they think about Israel, they think about China, different influencers, different, foreign governments that own property here. But the Saudis are also there because of, I did something on, they're buying up land in Arizona and growing alfalfa there and using up all this groundwater, well water. But the Saudis now are in business, and Stephen A. Smith read all these corporations, including Pfizer and like McDonald's and AT&T and all these things, right? Which is, a little bit on the truther side of things. Not that he's a truther, and, he's, like I said, a very annoying personality, but somebody who's very loud. And, it's people need energy in their lives, and sports is kind of, sports needs carnival barkers to prop it up and make it interesting. And, but there is an element of the truth community that is these narratives that are starting to enter mainstream media, which we've seen a little bit with Tucker Carlson and, other people, because they realize to sustain their audience, they need to address these things. Okay, so one of my viewers asked me about the video I talked about with Dr. Berg, and I know he's a Scientologist. I mean, it's just, I've covered this before. The hidden source of heart attacks that you never considered is the name of the video. That I believe I read the title. And, I don't do links. You're going to have to do a little work, I'm not here to be your internet guide or whatever, but, if I talk about something, I usually say the title, and then you have to figure it out. And people write me and want me to do extra work for them, and, and I just can't. I used to have more time, but I don't now. But this is the video I was talking about, and I'm going to address some health stuff to do with the fires. So first there's this. You see this helicopter's dropping fire here on these trees.
Look at that. That's how they started the fire.
It's to clean out dead trees.
Look at that.
Fake news.
They set it up. It's a setup.
So you're going to clean out dead trees by setting more fire?
Fake.
They set it up.
Okay, so I'll address this in a moment. This is, to me, a bogus video. It looks goofy, but whatever. But then there's this. I would like to warn many Americans who follow me that what you are witnessing in your skies is not normal. I live in Alberta, forest fire central. Our skies have never been yellow. They're lying to you. I don't know what they're doing, but it's not coming from here. And this is a person who's, I don't know, I can't be bought, who has 11,000 followers. And from Canada, so, it's a kind of a famous, semi-famous, 11,000 followers isn't a lot, but it's, it's some. So I want to address the first video first. This looks fake in the sense that they do controlled burns. And a controlled burn is they set fire to a certain portion of a forest so that it acts as like a firewall and there's nothing to burn. And they burn the underbrush. I mean, they do these different things. to prevent massive forest fires. They create fires to prevent more massive forest fires, because if they get a large tract of forest that's been burned down, then if there is a big fire, it hits that like fire break, and there's no more fuel, and the fire goes out. In fact, they do this to stop fires as well. Like if there's a fire, they'll burn some stuff ahead of it, and they'll do a control burn that they have the resources to put it out before it, on a non-windy day or whatever it might be, or if the wind's blowing towards the fire. And then when the fire, hits this, whatever it is, this dead area, the fire break, it'll go out. And so you can get videos of that anywhere and then pretend it just happened in Canada. And Canada has a lot of deciduous trees. I'm not sure where these fires were taking place. They certainly have pine trees, but there's, a lot more of these deciduous forests and things, which are harder to burn. Pine trees and some of these other, these type of, these cedar trees and things like this are drier, and they're in drier areas. But Canada is a very lush place. One of my buddies from college was French-Canadian, and he and his family, I was talking to him and his brother, they had this land in Canada, and they'd have these family gatherings, and they had a giant, they were connected to a lake, and they said that they were catching fish with bare hooks. Like the fish are so abundant in that lake. I mean, Canada had, there's only 30 million people, and it's almost the size of America, right? So it's a vast place. And, like someone's talking about depopulation in Canada. My wife told me about it. And we checked out, that's why I know the numbers. And I said, there's not that many people there. Like, they're not focused on overpopulation in Canada because there's vast amount of wilderness. I've been up there multiple times. I went to Ottawa. My dad and I saw some of the Olympics back when, Bruce Jenner was an athlete, those things. When I was like a little kid, 10 years old or something. And my family went to Canada a number of times. My mom loved it there. We had some relatives there as well. So there was, all that, right? And the first part is like that looks like a fake, controlled burn, and people are just using some old video to make it look like they set the fires on purpose. But there's other videos out there that show that the fires were all set at the same time and they all went off the same, whatever it might be. But this person writing said there was no yellow smoke there, and we all saw the yellow smoke that was in the New York, the New England area. People were really suffering. And, you take clean air for granted, and I was saying this already in my other video, that air quality in the future may not be there. It's just, like we take it for granted, especially in cities and places where the smog builds up and these things. And, a lot of these places are in bowls. There's no airflow into the city. And, in the future, if there's nuclear fallout or whatever, you might not be able to go outside. Like it just, it might be, we'll see what happens. But there's going to be some things that happen, and volcanoes when they go off, and, other things, not just, some sort of man-made situation, but, war, nuclear war, and, fires. And, in the Whispers of the Brighter World Prophecies. So these Whispers of the Brighter World messages were channeled messages from Babji, the second master of the system, who passed away in 1983. There was a medium, a French woman who does the Sajmark practice, the meditation I do. And she was a gifted medium, and he started to intercommune with her and caused a lot of controversy. And he started to give her messages that were like prophecies of like a apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic world. And she started to freak out because she was somebody who's had physical damage. She has suffered a back injury from falling off a horse when she was young. And a doctor she described as a butcher messed up her back, and she's sort of a shut-in who lives in her apartment and can't, do much of anything. But it says here, Wednesday, February 28, 2001, 9 a.m., in a quarter of a century, so this is 2025, 26. it's February 28th, 2001, so 25 years from then, roughly, the Earth will experience a major turbulence. That will be the beginning of a cycle which Earthmen will find very difficult to go through. Fire will literally beat down on certain parts of the world, whereas torrents of rain will pour over others. Cataclysms will follow one another for many long years, keeping men frightened. Many will turn to a supreme God, beseeching his forgiveness for more and more aberrant behaviors, which we all see now, as well as for the maltreatment imposed on their nourishing mother, the earth. The failure to respect these elements will lead to effects generating terror among population at the end of the century. So this is going into the 2100s. So this is 100 years of this, right? In future ages, present layout of the continents will be shattered. Maps will need revising. Yet the creatures inhabiting this planet will have more than enough to do in order to survive rather than dealing with such details. With those details, Adam will turn against mankind who will not have been able to harness it, and its lightning power will be devastating. The time for punishment for such a conceit will take place as hard as it can, and man, paying for his ancestors' glaring mistakes, will suffer without having any control over the situation. The transformation of this planet must go through all of these cataclysms in order to be effectively completed. So he talks about these things in various places, and that there needs to be a really bad time to give birth to a new spiritual, evolved human being in the future. And so, this ties into all that stuff. But the one thing I want to add here is after COVID, I watched a Shark Tank, and they had these boost oxygen, this product where it has canned oxygen, and there's knockoffs of this, and I bought it and I've used it different times and it's helped me, but I really used it the other day, and I had some headaches and I was having some issues, and it was really helpful. Now I was having issues before the fires, and there wasn't that much smoke where I live and whatever it is, right? But the air quality might be poor in the future, and COVID, I think, I've been sleeping, since COVID, I've had issues waking up with headaches and things. I've had COVID 3 times, especially after the first one. People are dying in their sleep a lot with COVID, post-COVID, and with the boop, the what. And because that's my special boop. And so, I started to use it like a lot, on one day. I was, instead of just taking a quick hit off it, getting some oxygen. Again, I'm not recommending anything, but, for me, it's a no-brainer to have oxygen around, given what the air quality could be in the future. And it might be even worse now. Like there might be less oxygen, but I felt so much lighter. I felt so much better, and I used it throughout the day, and I'm like, wow. So I've been doing, I think this is like the 3rd day, and the last 2 nights I've woken up refreshed. Like I think I wasn't getting enough oxygen. I have troubles, like I don't breathe as well as since COVID at night or something like that. And I just didn't have enough oxygen in my blood or whatever. And I've been able to do physical activity better without getting out of breath and things like this. So, I'm just throwing that out there. Let's move on to the next thing here. Okay, so there's a new movie called Bottoms out. One of my viewers sent me this, the trailer.
Could the ugly, untalented gays please report to the principal's office?
Guess that's you guys.
So these girls, somehow Marshawn Lynch is involved, and the girls start some sort of there's Marshawn Lynch there, start some sort of fight club here.
Fight club.
Let's get it popping in this motherfucker.
So that happened, right? And then, it's them against the popular kids. They're the bottoms, people on the bottom. Interesting way of putting this. And then, I don't know. It's a trailer of this is the quarterback or the football player, the white guy that's causing all the problems. And they eventually create chaos at their school and overturn the social order. Okay, so this guy is taking it to the next level. We've seen people taking photos with elephants and bison. This guy's taking selfies on a volcano, and he's standing on a rock as the fires are around him. Way to go. And then there was this.
Once again, to prove that there is no difference between biological females and biological males, we see this female Marine against this male Marine, and watch how it is a completely fair and equal battle. Do you see? See? Exact same.
Science fact, a dog gets more factual information from sniffing another dog's boop than a human does from watching CNN. I would probably tend to agree with that as being a fact. New York politician Kevin Sabella Sr. stands naked in a doorway, says special needs van driver who filmed him. He's naked and unafraid. I don't know. Do I need to say anything more about this? He's done it at least 10 times. Kirsten Davis says she's been ridiculed relentlessly for using fillers. I've shed tears. She has. She's one of the... it's hard to be confronted with your younger self at times. It's a challenge to remember that you don't have to look like that. The internet wants you to, but they also don't want you to. They're conflicted. Well, the internet's not a person. I've done fillers and it's been good. I've done fillers and it's been bad. I had to get them dissolved, and I've been ridiculed relentlessly and have shed tears about it, and it's very stressful. So sad that you have to go through this traumatic event of putting crap in your face and then removing it and having people ridicule you. I mean, your life is so difficult. Grayson Crisley says having his parents in prison is worse than them dying. Well, is it? Lil Wayne admits he can't remember his own songs due to memory loss. I don't know the Carter 3, the Carter 4, and the Carter 1 from the Carter 4, he admitted. And it's just my God's honest truth. You could lie. You could ask me about such and such a song. I wouldn't even know what we were talking about. Apparently he had some seizures and had to cancel his show in 2017. That with recreational drug use, he no longer can remember his own music. Ivanka Trump goes to synagogue with Jared Kushner after Dad Donald's indictment. Kablowie. That tells you all you need to know. She's been very cold to her dad since his... Britney Spears' family fears she's on meth and may die like Amy Winehouse. Apparently it was their anniversary, and I had something on that, but I must have X'd out of it. But I fear she's on meth, and I've been praying someone would make it public and that she wakes up, Federline told the Daily Mail. So apparently she's, they think she's on meth. Attorneys for Utah's grief author accused of killing husband with spiked drink argue for her release. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is pretty much, prison time for that. Boop. This is the article here. Conor McGregor knocks out Heat mascot at NBA Finals. Again, it's a publicity stunt because it's being covered. That's what was set up in the beginning. And so, we're talking about it because he clearly threw real punches. It's just if that was, part of the act or not. Okay, so I just read a wonderful comment while I was editing this. And here it is. It's about me saying this about Trump. I said, well, here, Paul, you'd like to see someone go to jail just because you'll find it interesting? Double question mark. Not just one, but 2 question marks. Nothing spiritual to see here, folks. Pathetic. 100% emoji. So here's the thing. I'm going to cover this tomorrow about how I really, had some thoughts this morning about how Trump just sucks. And it sucked for the truth community. And even though you think he's a little bit on our side or whatever it is, he just sucks. But I'll get into that tomorrow. But what this is about is the commenter. Because it's what I say all the time. This person wouldn't be upset if I said, if Jojo Magoo or Hunter Biden or Hillary Clinton went to jail, I find it interesting. They wouldn't have a problem with it because they wouldn't. They love Trump. And they're mad about my position on Trump, my beliefs about Trump. And they might agree with me. I think this person actually comments later on and agrees with me or whatever, and then they see the part about Trump, they get butthurt, and they have to write a comment. And the comment's emotionally manipulative because the person is trying to use my meditation, my being a practitioner of a spiritual practice as a way to get me, to show that I'm a hypocrite and that I'm not really spiritual after all. So take that, Mr. You hate Trump. It hurts my feelings because I'm butthurt. These comments are great because the difference between me and this person and Trump, at least Trump's persona, is that, I know I'm a piece of boop, right? I know that I'm selfish and I have, non-spiritual thoughts. I'm aware of my non-spiritual thoughts. And this isn't one of them. But I have lots of them. Me saying I'd find it interesting that Trump go to jail. And I didn't say wrongly go to jail because Trump has done criminal things. They all have. You don't become a billionaire by doing things in a moral way. And, Trump has lawyers and there's conversations and things that have been repeated about him talking to them in a way like, let's push the envelope to see what we can get away with. And people who are like that, they should go to jail. I mean, he's done a lot of damage. He's hurt people with his the way he's treated them in the economic world and other things he's done. He's a bad person. He's done bad things, selfish, greedy, all these things. And he's committed crimes here. If they get him for something, it's that he broke rules. Just because other presidents broke the same rules and aren't being prosecuted, or Hillary, broke the same rules, doesn't mean that Trump didn't break those rules and laws. And he was the law and order president. But he clearly is somebody who's broken laws in the past. Paying off a porn star isn't illegal, but he's done things like that as well. He's a true scumbag. And he's hurt, the truth community, and I'm going to get into that tomorrow, like I said, all these things. But him going to jail would be interesting. The first president ever going to jail would be interesting. Trump in jail would be interesting. That's a reality show that I would watch. They could just film that. Trump in prison. They could have a 24-hour cam on Trump, and it would be one of the top-rated shows around. He's not going to go to boop, I'm in the ass prison. He's going to go to a cushy federal prison or whatever it is, right? They'll have Secret Service, and he's going to be protected. He's old. He doesn't have that many years left. Whatever it is, but it'd be interesting. It would be. No one could say it wouldn't be interesting. If Joe Biden went to prison, it'd be interesting. So, again, it would be good for me to cover it, whatever. I still have plenty of material either way. But the issue here is when people get butthurt, and then they get manipulative and they try to get you. They try to, what can I say to him? I'll talk about how he's not very spiritual because he wants to be spiritual. He thinks he's spiritual, but I'm going to tell him he's not. Boom. And he hurt my feelings. I'm butthurt because he's saying things about Trump, and I worship Trump, and Trump's my God. And you can't have anything bad about Trump said, and he's saying bad things about Trump. So I'm going to get him. I'm going to say something bad about him. I'm going to tell him he's not spiritual. I'm going to tell him what a hypocrite he is. He's going to feel so sad. He's going to read my comment. He's going to feel bad about himself. And just like I feel bad about myself now because I'm following Trump like he's some sort of a cult leader, and I'm in some kind of Trump cult, and I don't want to admit it. So I want him to feel bad like I feel bad. It's just pathetic, right? That's pathetic. It's pathetic that you worship Trump when he doesn't care about you. He's not here to make America great again or fix anything. He's in it for himself. And some of it has to do with glory. Some of it has to do with wealth and power, but it's all about Trump. Everything that Trump does is all about Trump. He's not in it for any of you guys, and anybody can see that. And the fact that you can't is pathetic. At this point, it's pathetic. Maybe in the beginning, sure. But you're in your Trump hopium and your QB, whatever it is, and, it's just pathetic. There's no reason for it. Like, it's just right there. It's just that you are so weak you can't confront the reality that I and so many other people are able to see, that our system is completely booped, and there's nothing we could do about it because it's a bad system. It hurts people. It takes them in the wrong direction, and it's collapsing of its own depravity, and there's no antidote for that. And that's why we do Apocalypse Now. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.